Yeah, I think the system of the process is really important because they lay the foundations. But once those are in place, that's when you can start doing the sexy stuff and looking at the acquisitions. So I
Hmm.
think they're really, really important foundations.
You went from consulting to they doing it to you've had an exit with any of them yet?
We've had a couple of owners that acquire their shares back from us, but
Okay.
we've not had any significant exits as such. And that's mainly just due to the time period of where we've been doing this for 18 months or so. Even if they are tiny little companies that are only half a meter wide or half a foot wide, by the time you put 10 of them together, you've got that longer foundation in place that you can build on. But there's a lot, it's a lot harder work to do that. If you know what you're doing and you're skilled at that, fantastic. I would argue it's probably just acquire one that's 10 times the size and then build on that. But that's my mentality of
Hello, and welcome to the How to Exit podcast, where we introduce you to a world of small to medium business acquisitions and mergers. We interview business owners, industry leaders, authors, mentors, and other influencers with the sole intent to share with you what it looks like to buy or sell a business. Let's get rolling.
And now a moment for our sponsors. I want to highly recommend you get Acquisition Aficionado magazine. Every month, Acquisition Aficionado magazine brings you tactics for business buying and selling you won't find anywhere else. Learn firsthand from industry leaders who share their success stories, featuring in-depth interviews and stories from leading figures in the business acquisition industry. This multi-platform mobile magazine speaks to acquisition entrepreneurs wherever they are in the journey. And I want you to visit acquisitionaficionado.com today. Welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Jamie Simpson. He is one of the co-founders of Monopoly Capital, and we're going to talk about all things mergers, acquisitions, buying small companies. You are on the other side of the pond, so thank you for being there. I guess it's 3 or so your time. It's 7 a.m. my time. Thank you for taking time out of your day to help share your knowledge with us.
Thanks for having me, Ron. Appreciate you getting up nice and early to accommodate me.
I'm an early bird. I probably pop awake about 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning, whether I want to or not. So this isn't too bad. Let's start in with your history, kind of the background and what got you, leading up to what got you in the mergers and acquisitions space. I was looking through your online profiles and stuff, and I see everything from turnaround experience to private equity or, that type of stuff. So tell us about, who you are and where you came from and how you ended up in this space.
Absolutely. So I don't come from a traditional M&A background or even a traditional business background. I literally left school and went to do dead end job after dead end job. So I've worked in carpet shops. I've worked in sales jobs. I've done door to door sales. I've sold holidays for Virgin Holidays for the Caribbean and Florida. And then one day I was watching a movie called Thomas Crown Affair with Piers Brosnan, the mid-90s version. And I said, I want to be like that guy. It probably helped that he was James Bond at the time, made
Hmm.
him even cooler. But from that day onwards, I realized I wanted to be a businessman. But I didn't wake up the next morning and be Thomas Crown. Unfortunately, there was multiple years in between that epiphany and when I actually started pursuing business and mergers and acquisitions itself.
As funny as a buddy of mine was in the military, we used to watch that Wall Street over and over again. And when I got into this space, when I hired one of the local mentors to teach me, I had just bought a pest control company, and it was
Mm.
really wrong. I bought the equipment and started it up, but I started on the path to buy one and messed it all up, and ended up doing something totally different. So I hired some mentors to teach me better. Well, as soon as I did finish the course with same guy one of the guys you trained under, but the or got some skills from. As soon as I finished it, I emailed him and he didn't respond. So I called. His wife answered the phone, and her name is Katya. I said, "Hey Katya, tell Kyle, Blue Horse Show loves Anaconda Steel, right?" Because that was the one of the phrases in the movie. So he's
Yeah.
like, I hadn't spoke to the guy in 10 years, a military buddy. We're best friends, kind of thing, but we get busy with life and we don't talk to each other for a long time. So he calls me right back. What the hell's going on? It's like I finally did it. I'm doing mergers and acquisitions now, right? But I'm totally against the whole corporate raider side of it. But it was fun to, you see something like that or movie or something like that, it inspires you. Like, I got to check this out.
That was
Right.
based on Carl Icahn, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your experience in this space. I've read up on you. You've sent me some information, but what type of companies have you been interested in since you got in this space?
Yeah. So originally I started to pursue care homes over here in the UK. And that was after I've done training under numerous people. I'm not some expert that's gone out on his own and just naturally gifted at business and buying, selling businesses. I've done numerous courses from Dan Pena to Jeremy Harbour. Fantastic experiences with both of them, albeit different ends of the spectrum. After I left Dan Pena's Castle, having done his mergers and acquisitions course
Did you get in
7
the
or 8
boxing
years
ring?
ago. There wasn't the boxing ring at the time. I wish there was because I was boxing back then. So,
I was gonna say, if I ever went to that, I'd lose some weight first because I've been injured and I'm really heavy now. But I hold 4 black belts and I've studied martial arts for the majority of my adult life. I wouldn't tell him that before he put me in the ring with some poor soul, though. Like, yeah, yeah, I'll get in the ring with him. Come on, yeah, who do you got there?
uh,
So,
well, I actually found Dan Pena. So, I watched Thomas Crown Affair, but I didn't wake up the next day and say, I'm going to be mergers and acquisitions expert. My journey begins. I actually found Dan Pena because I was really into my boxing at the time. They used to go all over the world watching boxing. So New York, Madison Square Garden, into Latvia, into Monte Carlo, all over the UK to watch boxing. And I was learning to become a boxing cutsman because my boxing coach is one of the best cutsmen in the world. So I was
yeah.
listening to a podcast for Stitch Duran, who's a very famous boxing cutsman and UFC cutsman. And at the end of that podcast, it said, and next we have, next time on the podcast, we have Dan Pena. He lives in a castle and he buys and sells businesses. I thought, sounds interesting. I'm going to
Mhm.
listen to that. And it was obviously pre-recorded. So I listened to it straight away. And that is actually where my journey started. So yeah,
Yeah.
I went to Dan Pena's castle. I did his training. I didn't know what mergers and acquisitions really were then, only from Thomas Crown Affair. I
Mhm.
thought it was just a personal development course. I could barely spell M&A, let alone go and complete a deal. So I left there. I just followed the steps that he taught me, and I put together a fantastic board of directors with a Premier League football club chairman, CFO from Merrill Lynch, industry expert for the NHS. And I went to acquire a group of care homes, but I made every mistake in the book wrong.
Mhm.
I got deal heat. I got focused on one deal. The seller wasn't motivated. I paid for the legal fees up front. I didn't get them on a success fee basis. Every mistake that you're taught not to do in mergers and acquisitions 101, I did that. I did it on quite a big scale. So it actually cost me my life savings of about 50,000 UK pounds. I'm not sure what that is in dollars at the minute, probably about $75,000, which my then girlfriend, who's my now wife, wasn't too impressed with, I must say, particularly when we're looking to buy our first property. But yeah, I made every mistake in the book, and ultimately that large transaction of £11 million didn't go through. It took 4 or 5 years that dragged out, which I thought it was just not normal, but it was normal to me at the time. I was being advised by someone more experienced than me and who was also putting in money to the transaction. Keep going. We'll get this over the line. We'll get this over the line. When I speak to other people now, they say, I got deal heat. I spent 3 months on this deal. I'm like, I spent 4 years. I wish I spent 3 months on the deal. So yeah, I learned the hard way early on with big transactions, and then I scaled it back a bit and I started to do smaller deals, tiny deals at first, with hair salons. So I acquired 6 hair salons in 6 months, rolled them up under the umbrella of one brand and exited those. And that led to doors opening elsewhere where we've now set up Monopoly Capital, and we do more of a consulting for equity model.
Yeah, the hair salon thing's interesting me. Not that I know anything about hair. I've been shaving my head
Likewise.
where, if I try to grow hair, it looks like I'm trying to grow hair. Like a bad attempt at it. That said, they're fairly cash, driven companies, and there's a little bit of real estate play in it, depending on how they're set up, because you've got the real estate, of course, the facility you're in, but you're renting chairs a lot of times at these facilities, right? Depending on how the hair salon's set up. So, it's fascinating in the sense that and they're usually fragmented. There's some national franchises here, but there's a lot of mom and pop shops, right? And they make great money. It's funny thing is I never knew how much money hair and barber shops and stuff made until I had a coaching and marketing business, and one of my clients owned a couple hair salons, and I helped her do it, and I helped her do marketing and stuff for it so she could get a bank loan. I wrote a marketing plan for her so she'd get a bank loan to open yet another branch, and she had to show me the financials and stuff when she was doing that. I was like, "Holy cow, these are great." And then I owned a real estate business for a while. Still own some real estate, but one of my tenants, one of my bigger houses, like said, I asked him what he did for a living, and he's like, "Well, I cut hair." I was like, "Well, the mortgage on this is like 1,400 a month. You gonna be able to cover that?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I make that a week, as a like a Hispanic barber." And I was like, "How do you do? How do you cut and But if you think about it, these guys can, he does cuts and shaves and fades and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And the high end, it's $40, $50 to for somebody who walks in the door, and he's servicing 8, 9 of those a day. It adds up fast, right?
Yeah, there's low overheads as well, isn't there? So yeah, they do spit off cash if you can get them running correctly.
Yeah. So you did that, you rolled it up, you sold it, and that's what you used to fund the next project?
Yeah, so exited that business, which led to more time.
Mhm.
So it was a decent exit. It was nothing fantastic. I'm sure 99% of the other guests on this podcast have had bigger and sexier exits than me, in all transparency. But more importantly, it gave me the freedom and the security of having funds so that I could free up my time to focus my energy on better opportunities. And that's what I've done since then. And I've partnered with my business partner to set up Monopoly Capital, and we've since added another partner to Monopoly Capital. So there's three of us, and we now do a consulting for equity model. So we don't actually need to invest too many funds to take equity in these companies. Then we add shareholder value to these businesses, and we have a 3-year plan to exit these companies, whether the owner wants to buy their shares back from us or we all exit together. So it's very low risk, but not just for us, but for the owner as well. So we try to make it has to be win-win for both parties. It also means we're not out there throwing cash at deals that we hope work. We're very selective. If we are to put our own funds into a deal, the numbers need to stack up.
It's interesting how almost everybody that talks to you, though, if you put out there that you're an investor and you do what you do, most of the calls start off with, at least in my world, most of the calls start off with, "I need X number of dollars to do X, Y, and Z." And you have to have that, not exactly in these phrases. I soften the blow a little bit, but I'm not putting money in your leaky bucket conversation, right? There's some holes in your operations. You don't need more money. You need more into an intuition, you need more creative
Expertise.
solutions, you need more strict financial controls. That said, how do you handle that conversation when you get them on the phone? You're working with a potential work for equity or consulting for equity client, and all they really seem to ask for at the beginning is an investment.
It's a good question, Ron. But we address it quite early. So we don't waste their time and we don't waste our time. So we would ask them to fill in a very simple form, giving us some basic details about their business. That will give us a quick oversight as to whether it's investable from a cash point of view, or whether we feel it's investable from a time point of view, or whether we feel it's investable at all and whether the juice is worth the squeeze. So we tend to have that conversation extremely early and just say, based on the answers you've given, you don't fit our criteria for investing funds into this opportunity. However, we do see an opportunity to grow and scale the business by fixing X, Y, Z, like you just alluded to, with financial controls or marketing, etc. And we're willing to give a guarantee on what we can achieve together if you follow the steps. And if you don't achieve what we say you'll achieve, you can have your shares back for free because we haven't delivered.
That's a great proposition to give somebody too. Now, when they come to you, are they looking to prepare for X over time? Or are they just looking to grow, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination. So originally we were working with a lot of distressed companies that needed a bit of TLC and needed the basic fundamentals put in. But as we've grown as a company and we've got more sophisticated and used to working together as partners, we've upped our game. We've started to work with bigger companies, more profitable companies. And And the messaging we're putting out there is to attract more profitable companies that want to exit in the future. They're saying that distressed companies are fantastic because you can add a lot of value to someone's business and someone's quality of life through eliminating their stresses. You get a monthly management fee, which is fantastic for cash flow. And in the future, even if they don't want to exit because it's their cash cow that provides their income, you've always got the opportunity to sell your shares back to them as well, whether that's through getting some commercial debt or doing it through deferred. There's multiple routes to exit there. But ultimately, we're in this for exits. You don't make money when you run a business. You make money when you sell a business. So when we get involved with a company, we're always looking at the exit. However, we judge it on a case-by-case basis, not just on the business, but on the owner and the owner's appetite for risk and when they want to exit and what they want from their life as well. Because there's no point us saying, let's exit this business in 12 months if the owner wants to stay in the business for the rest of their lives. So you really need to listen to what the owner's saying and then adjust your offering accordingly, in my experience.
What about coachability? When I was a marketing coach, and one of the things I would do is give somebody fairly early on, even before I took them on as a client, a few ideas or tasks to see if they would actually execute. Because it's really difficult to coach anybody who I refer to them as assholes. So somebody
So
will
do
ask
I.
you a bunch of questions. So an asshole is somebody will ask you a bunch of questions, but not do a damn thing that you suggest that they do. Right? They wasted your time. Like they just spent time trying to confirm ideas they already had, and if it doesn't align with those ideas, they're not going to do it. A lot of potential coaching clients were that way. It's like they wanted to do what they wanted to do, and they just wanted you as a sounding board. And quite often, they were on the wrong path. So, when I was doing marketing coaching and doing business coaching, one of the first things I would do is like, are they coachable? Do you deal with that with some of these business owners? Are they going to listen and execute?
Absolutely, Ron. It's a fantastic point to raise. And it's something that I brought up when I was a speaking engagement in Miami last week. One of the 5 steps we look for before onboarding a new company, but mainly a new owner, is whether they're coachable or not. Because we have had instances where we've worked with companies, the owners refused to follow the steps despite giving us equity in their company, despite paying us a monthly fee. They don't follow the steps, even though it's in their best interest to, and you're trying to solve their problems. So at that point, we usually part ways simply because you're just banging your head against a brick wall. And as you say, they're assholes. That unless you're telling them what they want to hear, they're not going to change. And there's no point working with them regardless. So at that point, the best bet is just to let them go and do their own thing. So that you don't build up resentment towards the relationship. And ultimately, we found that the companies that do that, they do end up going bust because they're not stable enough to ride out the storms without the foundations that we're trying to implement.
It's in the coaching world, it was one of those cases also where I'd have a few clients that make it past the initial screening. You sit down with them, you do all the whole planning out, and you say, okay, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. And you build together a project plan or a plan in some sense.
Hmm.
And then later on, when you have the conversation, you're like, well, this isn't working. They're like, cool, did you do step 1? Well, not exactly the way you defined it. So do you guys do a lot of do it for you, or you actually just go in and do things, or is it more of a coaching consulting relationship, or do you guys actually getting your
Yeah,
hands
so
dirty and
we
work
see
out?
ourselves as non-executive support. So we
Mhm.
will advise, we'll have weekly calls, bi-weekly, monthly calls, depending on how much they need us. And we will give advice, and we can make introductions. Very rarely will we do it for them because it's very important they learn what we're doing and why we're doing it and how to do it so they can do it for themselves in the future. But I've got a friend who's got a very successful personal training business, and that's online coaching. So he will give them the fitness plan, he will give them the diet plan. And when we speak, there's huge parallels between what we do. He
Mhm.
will say, the person will say, my plan's not working. Have you tracked your food? No. Have you done the exercises? No, but the plan's not working. No, you're not working with the plan, which is why the plan's not working. And we experience that ourselves, but through that experience of working with these types of people, our gut feelings and our judgment of owners of businesses are getting better. So businesses that perhaps we would have taken on 18 to 24 months ago, we're now declining, and we'd rather have fewer companies that are more aligned with our values and our goals and where they want to get to. than simply just doing a deal for the sake of doing a deal. It's quality over quantity for us.
So have you taken any of these to fruition where you've totally went from consulting? I know that might be early in this phase, but you went from consulting to they doing it to you've had an exit with any of them yet?
We've had a couple of owners that acquire their shares back from us, but
Okay.
we've not had any significant exits as such. And that's mainly just due to the time period of where we've been doing this for 18 months or so. We
Right.
tend to have a 36-month plan to exit every business. As I say, that could be to exit them together as a trade buyer to a private equity company, or they could even buy their shares back from us. But we kind of put a stake in the ground as 36 months. So they've got something to focus towards. If it takes another 12 months and we get that exit, not many people are going to feel sorry for us, but it's very good to have a plan to work towards and a time frame to work towards. But to answer your question directly, Ron, we've not had any huge, sexy exits from it yet, but we're really early in the game.
The process you go through with these guys, what does it look like? Is there an onboarding where you sit down with them, you do a deep dive in their business? What does the process look like once you've said yes, you'll work with somebody?
Good question, Ron. So once we've got all the admin sorted and the shares transferred, etc., we tend to take payment up front now as well. That's due to experience of us wanting to add value before asking for something in return. But we find that by getting our monthly retainer up front, they value you more. So if they've got a call booked in next Tuesday at 4 p.m., they're not going to reschedule it because they've paid for that call. So we tend to do that as the first part of our onboarding now. But yeah, we have a process where we do a deep dive into their financials. We look at what their margins are, how they're pricing, what their payment terms are, just simple financial stuff. Then we look at their marketing. Who do they really want to attract? Oh, we're servicing a lot of residential clients at the minute, but we'd really like to start doing B2B and attracting more commercial work. Well, how are you marketing for that? Oh, we're not at the minute. Oh, so you're hoping to achieve more commercial work, but you're not actually doing anything to attract it. Let's address that. Let's put in a LinkedIn playbook. Let's put in some email marketing. Let's get you on podcast so you become a key person of influence. So we look for the gaping holes first and fill those, but we do have a system to kind of go through it. But you might find that with one company, you might jump to number 3 instead of number 1. But we do start at number 1, number 2, number 3, but from company to company, it will vary. There's a gaping hole on number 5. Let's address that first because that's eating up a lot of the business.
Do you guys address things like growth or acquisition? Do you help them acquire other companies?
We do, but we haven't actually done that as of yet because we want to get the foundations in place first of all. So if they're not in a position to go away for 6 weeks and their staff to handle lead generation, making sure jobs are being priced correctly and the financial reporting's in place, then they're not in a position to take on a whole load of new customers and staff. So we like to systemize the business first of all, lay the strong foundations, and then we can implement an acquisition strategy to do some bolt-ons, or not even bolt-ons. It is even a case of, with the experience of partners at Monopoly, all 3 partners have actually exited companies independent of the Monopoly, and we've all bought companies independent of the Monopoly. So we know what we're looking for. So even if we've got a company that's only doing 2 million in revenue, we wouldn't be adverse to trying to be the minnow that swallows the whale and doing some acquiring a platform and doing it in the reverse order because we've got the appetite to do so.
A lot of businesses don't get that they can do that, right? They can be the minnow that swallows the whale. You can absolutely acquire a company much bigger than yourself, through leverage, through creative finance, through all the stuff that you've been trained in. And often that's the case. If you help them solidify their systems and processes, then, and you've got a great leadership team in place, often acquiring a bigger company who's wanting to retire and, maybe the leadership is starting to take it a little bit easy. Those are great targets, right? There's some room for them to grow and put the foot back on the gas pedal type of situation. What is the time frame to get a company ready for acquisition? Like you walk into a company they've been in business for 4 or 5 years, but they've just never had anybody show them what systems and processes look like, what great books look like, what standard operating procedures are. What's the time frame to get somebody ramped up from a decent business to a well-ran one ready to acquire other companies?
I think that's really dependent on the owner and the speed that they work at, because it's important to realize that these guys are sat at home and the business is running themselves itself. That's why they brought us in. So these
Mm,
guys have still got to run the business on a day to day, plus implement the changes that we're bringing to the table. So that's a lot harder to do from a time point of view than if the business has already got management in place and you can work on the business rather than in the business. A lot of these guys are still working in the business. We're trying to transition to be out of the business.
mhm.
So trying to do that while they're juggling both is, I'd like to sit here and look you in the eye Ron, and say, we can do that in 3 months. But realistically, I think with the position of the size of the companies we work with, which is between 1 to 5 million turnover, very small companies, you're probably looking at about 9 months, 6 to 9 months. But that's without stressing the owner too much by putting too much weight on their shoulders.
And then, how do you go about finding these? You guys doing, what is your lead generation to find contract for equity deals?
Yeah, so we're slightly different to most people. So some people send letters, they send emails. 95%, maybe 99% of so we've done 23 deals in the last 18 months, 8 of which we've parted ways with because they weren't coachable. I think it's very important to be transparent about that. These aren't all home runs, but we've got about 15 good companies now. And 99% of the 23 deals that we have done have come through my LinkedIn. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post a lot of content on LinkedIn. I try and give a lot of value on LinkedIn. And then I've also got a WhatsApp group for business owners. So I kind of take them from LinkedIn, put them into the funnel of the WhatsApp group and add even more value in the WhatsApp group. I think we've got 4 or 5 deals just from the WhatsApp group. But the amount of people that follow me for a year, 2 years, and I don't even know they exist. They've never messaged me. They've never liked a post. They've never commented on a post. And one day I'll wake up and there'll be a message in the inbox. I've been following your stuff for a while now. I think you can help me with X, Y, Z. Are you free for a call? And then once you got the fish on the hook, time to reel them in, can show them that it's a lot nicer in the fish tank in our house, and we're going to feed them every day and
Mm.
look after them.
It's interesting that that pays off over time, right? This show, I get people reaching out to me from this show. My guests all get people reaching out to them from the show. But just merely putting yourself out there, showing people that you're willing to help, that you have some knowledge and some skills, over time it adds up, right? You build a decent following, you build people who, I have people reach out to me and call me and act like they've known me forever, right? And I get it. They listened to 200 shows. They spent 200 hours of their life listening to me talk to, various people in the industry.
Yeah.
So they think they really know who I am. And, and I bring up personal things. I don't think I've ever said the name of my kids on the show, but everybody knows I have kids and stuff. And so people call me, well, how are your kids? How's this? And how's this going? And I'm like, who is this? Well, I'm a longtime listener of your show, but they have this sense of, because they hear you in their ear all the time, they have this sense of that they know you, right?
That's a really good point, Ron. And I found that more with video content. So first of all, I started doing written posts. Then I started doing images, but I'm doing more and more video content. And I've started my own YouTube channel, Jamie Simpson Business Investor. Everyone, subscribe, like, follow, whatever you need to do. Um, but video is really important because they know what you look like, they know what you sound like, they know your mannerisms, they know your accent. So by the time you get them on the phone and they've reached out to you,
Hmm.
all you've got to do is just not say the wrong thing and the deal is there to be done, because they're not going to spend that time getting accustomed to your personality and to your ways. They already know who you are. So as long as you can genuinely solve their problem and add value to them, it's very easy to close deals that way.
A lot of these business owners you're coaching, though, they're what I refer to as accidental entrepreneurs, right? They didn't intend to start a business. That's not what they originally set out to do. They just happen to be really good at something. They did it. Somebody said, "Hey, would you do one of those for me?" Right? They did that, and then somebody heard about it. Next thing they know, they're doing enough of it on the side. I think, if I did this full time, I wouldn't have to do this other thing I'm doing. That's a job, and either rightfully or wrongfully think it's an escape to leave a full time 40-hour a week job and start a business. They think they're going to have more time and more freedom. That said, you can't fault them for not having systems and processes and accounting and all the stuff that you and I and other people know they need,
Who's
right?
talking them? I mean, it's not their fault, is it? I mean,
No.
you're going to do what you can to get by. If you're busy, if you're an electrical contractor and you're out in site every day, you're going to be doing your admin and sending your invoices as the last thing at night while you're juggling your wife, talking to you about her day that you probably don't care about, and listening to your kids screaming in the background and trying to cook your meal and all this jazz. And it becomes so far down your to-do list, but it needs doing. So you do the bare minimum that you can to get it done. And that turns into your admin system. And over the years, that gets rustier and rustier, and it's never great to begin with. And it's just the way you've always done things. You don't know any different. You're not sat in a room with other people that do it a different way, learning from them. So you end up with these businesses that are doing £1 million in turnover or $1.5 million in turnover from their back bedroom by sending invoices when they can't be bothered at 10 p.m. at night, and they're probably not even checking the numbers. So it's actually really easy to add a lot of value to these businesses just by systemizing the simple stuff like invoicing, credit control, bookkeeping. If you can take them from a 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10 quality and move them into 8, 9 out of 10 quality, you're probably in the top 10% of the industry straight away. So you can add a lot of value really quickly to these businesses. And once you have systemized these boring basics, you only have 100 energy tokens a day. If you're spending 20 of them on this admin stuff that you're not very good at, and you can systemize that or delegate that, you've now got 20 extra tokens that you can use to go and do what you're best at, winning the work. You might be doing the work, you might be delegating the work, you might be working on the business. The more you can invest into that, the better result you're going to get. And that starts with getting rid of the minutiae that you don't enjoy and you're not very good at.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that cognitive fatigue thing where you only have so many tokens of stuff. People give me a hard time, like, every time I see you wearing the same thing, I was like, that's because I have exactly 5 of these shirts and five or 6 pairs of these pants, and I don't have to. I can totally, literally get dressed in the dark because everything's the same. If I grab 2 socks out of my drawer, they match because about once a year I throw every one I have away. I go buy 2 dozen pair of the exact same thing. And it's just simplistic because I don't want to waste energy or time on making decisions that are so irrelevant in my life. Occasionally, you see me in one weird color or off color, and I was like, "That's because the wife bought it."
Yeah,
Sh
yeah.
she went and bought me clothes that time. That said, business owners don't get that happens to them, right? That by the end of the day, if they're putting their finances, at the end of the day, like you're talking about at 10 p.m., they're giving the least focus they possibly can to something that's a true indicator of who they are and where they're going. And, I talk to these business owners all the time, and I have to explain to them what you do by intuition now, because you've been doing it for 30 years, knowing like you're running a 2 or $3 million, business, turnover, as you refer to it, revenue is what we call it here. If you're doing $2 or $3 million in revenue and you don't have these systems and processes, you just have built this really cool sense, this intuition about your company, of when you need to talk to customers, when you do that. There ain't another operator gonna come in day one and have that intuition, that sense of how things are going and stuff. So the way we accommodate that is systems, processes, and books and documentation. They get it, or they say they get it, but
If they're coachable, they get it.
yeah. One of the things I focus on is I like to help companies grow through acquisition. So I'm not your guy who can help you turn something around, right? As a matter of fact, anything I look to purchase, I want it to have a big fat profit margin. And the reason I joke around about that is because I'm sure I'm going to make some mistakes and I need some room for error.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
If you're running really lean or you're a turnaround, man, it's just not the right thing for me because at 52, going on 53, I have come to the realization that I may not be the smartest person on this planet. Of all the college degrees I have and all the experience I've had, to tell a business owner, yeah, you've run that for 30 years, I'm going to acquire it, run it better than you. I've dissolved that part of my ego a long time ago.
Mhm.
Right. And that's something that you're helping these business owners prepare their business so that the next guy doesn't have to be that rock star. The next guy can walk into something that's systemized, see numbers, right? They can see systems and processes and take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think the system of the process is really important because they lay the foundations. But once those foundations are in place, that's when you can start doing the sexy stuff and looking at the acquisitions. So I
Mhm.
think they're really, really important foundations.
What is the, I'm trying to think of how do I word this one. Just basically when you know it's ready, when you know they're ready to acquire a company, how often you get pushback from that? Because that's a big step for a lot of business owners, unless they've been geared for it and they know they want to acquire other companies, to have a conversation with, hey, look, if you really want to grow faster than anything else on there, there's nothing beats acquiring another company, right?
Yeah, we don't get pushback. We get quite the opposite. So over in the UK, I'm not sure if it's the same over in the States. Acquisitions are very vogue at the minute. They're very sexy, and there's lots of people monetizing it by selling courses left, right, and centre. Some that have rightly done deals, others that are just being opportunistic and trying to make money off it. But because it is vogue and the property market is not fantastic at the minute, so the new government and the tax incentives are not very beneficial to we call them in the UK buy to let, so buy a rental property. The yields on them aren't fantastic. So everyone's turning to buying businesses and everyone's doing these lead magnets to do these intro courses and then these upsells and further upsell. Every man and their dog wants to buy a business in the UK at the minute. So when you say to the business owner, we can look at acquisitions, they tend to want to jump the gun and do it a lot quicker than when they're ready. So now we try not to mention it too early because we had one company, an electrical contractor. What's next? What's next? Should we buy a company? Should we start a campaign to buy a company? And they're really struggling because they're not doing the basics that we taught them. They've gone backwards. They were doing the basics, but they got ahead of themselves. They stopped doing the basics that we taught them. And that's because they take their eye off the ball and their ego, they think they're better than what they are. And actually, you've got to prove it to us and prove to yourself that you can do the basics first, because if your foundations are only, we use meters, if your foundations are only half a meter wide and you build up, it's going to
Mhm.
topple over. But if you look at the pyramids have stood for so long because they're so wide at the foundations and then they go up and they've lasted forever and a day. So we try and say to these business owners, let's build wider foundations first and then let's build up. Whereas you see a lot of people, even people that sell courses on how to buy businesses, they go and buy a load of them, but the foundations are so narrow that they just topple over. So I try and use that analogy quite a lot to the owners, just so they don't get ahead of themselves.
The only other option you have on that, and, I don't I want your opinion on this because I'm talking to somebody right now, this is probably what we need to do. They're young, they've got a, decent business, they don't have systems and process, they're gung ho to buy something, and I was like, the only way you should buy anything right now is if you find somebody retiring out of the industry and their businesses ran really well, right? They have great books, they have a great bookkeeper, they have great systems and processes, they have, but the owner's really either got a life altering illness, some reason he's got to go, right? He's retiring out, he's done. Because then, you're the minnow that swallows the whale and you're going to adapt, as long as you're willing to go in and adapt their systems and processes and apply that to your guys, then we can probably
Benefit
do
you.
this. But you have to
Yeah,
set your ego aside thinking you've got this nailed down, and let's go find something that's just run really well and understand that, yeah, you're gonna be the leader of that. Now, the trick is, if you don't prepare them for that and coach it, they'll slip that big business back to their old ways, right?
absolutely. So we've acquired a majority stake of a marketing company.
Mhm.
We gave them a load of leads through our network and they couldn't handle the volume. They were losing customers. They didn't perform to the level that we thought they did. And that's not their fault because we gave them too much volume and they didn't have the systems and processes in place to deal with it. So we're focusing now on putting the systems and processes in place, fixing the leaky bucket before we pour more water into it. And then we can look at more leads. But instead of focusing on these systems and processes, this is only 2-3 weeks ago, all of a sudden let's look at buying this company. Can I have more leads? Let's buy this. You've proven you can't handle more volume. How could doubling or tripling your revenue and having more staff to look after and more customers to service, how can that benefit you when you couldn't even handle 20 or 30 new clients? It's been proven that you're not strong enough to do it from a business standpoint, from a a systems and processes standpoint. So let's spend the next 6 months mastering that and becoming the best in the industry at that, making those pyramid foundations and then building on it. But instead, that is shiny object, shiny object. And I'm finding acquisitions in the UK, because they are vogue and they are sexy, they are more of a distraction and a shiny object rather than a tool for business growth at the moment. So depending on the character that we work with, it's very important to set expectations. I think the ones where acquisitions will be the most beneficial for are the ones that aren't even thinking about it because they're too busy focusing on just getting better every day. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I just trying to figure out on this particular case whether it makes sense to even go look for anything for these guys, just because they don't have their act together at their level, right? And in order to do something like that, you have to have a vote of confidence in your own mind. It's like, okay, if we find something, they're not going to mess it up, right? Because when you acquire, that's the difference between when you build something, it's yours to solve and figure it out. When you acquire something, it's yours to mess up, right?
I'd ask the question, Ron, if you owned that company you were going to acquire, would you be happy with those guys running your business for you? Because if the answer is no, then why would you spend the time and energy to acquire it? Because most likely that business, although at a greater standard of skill set, staff, culture, systems, more likely to lower down to the owner's level than it is for the owner to go up to the level of the new company. So if you've got a load of staff in the company you're looking to acquire, and they're all absolute killers, 10 out of 10, but you go in there and the new CEO or the new owner doesn't go in on a Monday or a Friday, and he doesn't do the things that make them killers. He doesn't praise them when they do well. He doesn't hold them to account for their sales targets. They're not going to become killers anymore. They're going to slack. So that business by default the quality will go down, and the natural killers who will just kill wherever they go because they're so good, they will just go to the competition and just be a killer there.
It's a great point. It's a great way to look at that. So it's I see in your perspective, it's always best to build that foundation, know you have great systems and processes, and then build off of that. I interviewed a guy who, if you'd asked me, before interviewing him, should anybody acquire a micro business, I'd tell them they're wasting their time, right? But this guy has such great systems and processes, and there's a little bit of a barrier to entry in his industry, meaning there's regulations and licensing and a really long time frame to get into some markets, that he'll buy little mom and pop operating shops that have established footprints in area just because they hold the licenses, and his systems and processes and software is so good that day one he just goes in and retrains everybody. Here's exactly what you do, right? Because he has such a foundation.
Exactly. And then even if it is a mom and pop shop, you put 10 of them together, but they're all using the same systems and processes, even if they are tiny little companies that are only half a meter wide or half a foot wide, by the time you put 10 of them together, you've got that longer foundation in place that you can build on. But it's a lot harder work to do that. If you know what you're doing and you're skilled at that, fantastic. I would argue it's probably just acquire one that's 10 times the size and then build on that. But that's my mentality of I think entrepreneurs are always looking for the easy option, and that's why we're entrepreneurs. We're there to simplify things where possible and try and make things easier.
What is the best point to start? Like, I guess what I'm really wanting to ask is, what does somebody need and have in place before they would call a company like yours, right? What should they be working on before they make that call to you?
I think if you get to a certain size, like $1.5 million in, you call it revenue.
We call it revenue. You call it here when we say turnover, it's usually like employees leaving. So turnover is like how fast your staff is. Like, if you hired 100 people and you lose 2, you have a 2% turnover that year,
Sure.
right?
Well, revenue wise, I think only 7% of businesses ever get to $1 million of revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we work at companies that size, because they've already proven that they're in the top 7%. If you can get to that without having decent system processes, and you don't have a great network of contacts, and you've not been mentored by people that have already been there and done it and bought companies and sold companies, you're doing something right. So imagine if you could bring in those skill sets, those contacts, those mentors, that accountability, And also we really benefit from having the ecosystem of having 15 companies in the group so they can all cross sell with each other and lean on each other as well. Imagine what you could do with all of that. So you've done pretty well to get to your $1 million revenue. But let's supercharge this. Let's build strong foundations and let's build on it. That's where we feel like we can add a lot of value. We don't want to take a company from 100,000 revenue and try and get it to $1 million, because you're trying to push your rock uphill. They're still learning the basics. They're still quite young in business, quite immature as owners, not as people, but as owners. So once they've gone through and they've got a few scars, it's a lot easier to work with them, because they say, I've spent 3 years on that mistake. I don't want to make it again. I'd rather just leverage off your experience so I don't have to do that. But I think everybody needs to make the mistakes on their own first of all, so they get to that point.
One of the things I look for is, do they already have product market fit? Because you can be, I talked to somebody not too long ago who they had 4 clients and they're doing 1.5 million, right?
Yep.
You could be a very small company and hit that 1.5 million, but they still may or may not have product market fit for their industry, right? They just happen to find 4 clients that really was willing to give them a shot, and they provide high-end data services and, that type of stuff. That said, so every client they have is, $250,000 to $500,000 engagement. I still wasn't ready to work with them because they only had 4 clients,
Yeah.
right?
They're not diversified enough. You lose one of those, you lose a quarter of your revenue. You have to start getting rid of staff, morale drops, and the business collapses overnight.
Exactly. So product market fit is something that's one of the most difficult things to prove you've got, but it usually occurs when you've got enough customers where if you lose 10% of your customer base, or, if you lose 1 or 2 customers, it doesn't impact anything, right? You've got customers coming in. If you got product market fit and a little bit of branding going on, you should have organic leads coming in and some other stuff. People should be inquiring about what's going on. You should be getting some referrals, right? There's a certain level where the market knows who you are and they know that you have something, a solution for them. It's one of the things I look for. Is there anything else you look for when you're starting with some of these companies?
I think it's a good point, Ron, because you're looking for that because you're looking to acquire the company. But because we're taking a minority percentage, we would see that as an opportunity to say we can help you diversify your client base,
Hmm.
help you generate those leads, put in a marketing system, put in a LinkedIn playbook to grow your company. If you're looking to acquire that company and put down cash or leverage the balance sheet of that business, it's a huge red flag, like you rightly allude to. But for us, it's an opportunity where potentially we're not risking any capital. We're going in and just taking a sweat equity stake. And then we can solve that problem with the owner through our experience, through our contacts, through cross-selling, dilute that problem and that reliance on those 4 customers and try and get them up to 10, 12, put in a referral program so that they've got that system moving forward so they're never in that situation again. So it's 2 different ends of the spectrum. You're looking at it from a risk profile. We're looking at it as an opportunity profile.
Right. I get that. How do people reach out to you if somebody wants to work with you, if somebody wants to learn more about what you're up to? You mentioned your YouTube channel, so make sure let's plug that one more time, and let's plug a couple different ways for us to reach out and make a connection with you.
Absolutely. So on LinkedIn, I'm Jamie Simpson Business Fixer. That's my actual name on there. Don't know how I got it so long, but I managed to get away with it. If you go onto YouTube and type in Jamie Simpson Business Investor, you'll find me on there as well. And I'm extremely active on LinkedIn. I post at least once a day. And it's not pictures of my breakfast and my dinner. It really is value for small business owners and my opinion on where certain markets are and how people can add value to their business. And if you go on my LinkedIn, go to the featured section of my profile, you'll find my WhatsApp group for business owners. You'll find my YouTube. You'll find a few magazine articles as well. And my link trees on there with other podcast episodes, but they're not as good as Ron's. So don't waste your time on them.
No, you got good stuff out there. I was skimming through some of it. I'm going to watch some more of it. I like learning from others. It's so much cheaper than trying to learn from my own mistakes. Right?
Definitely.
You
And
could,
I do the same, Ron. No, I'm no wizard. I'm no expert.
yeah,
Everything I've learned is pieced together from multiple other people. As I say, I've done Darren Pena's course. I've done Jeremy Harbour's course. I've read multiple books. I've done mini courses, such as people like Jesse Itzner, who, as far as I'm aware, he doesn't buy businesses, he does startups.
Mhm.
Helps that he's married to a billionaire in Sarah Blakely from Spanx, of course.
Mhm.
But he's very family focused, and I get a lot of influence from him. I'm a big follower of Andy Frisella and the way he's organically built Firstborn without any external finance. I'm a big follower of Warren Buffett and his investment profile and how he likes to compound and wait and invest his money into funds and passions that he's really passionate about. So I cherry pick bits from absolutely everyone. And ultimately I think we all do. And that's what makes us unique, because nobody is ever going to follow the same exact set of people that I do. And that nobody's going to follow the exact same set of people as you do, Ron. So we have our own opinions. And when they come together, they blend nicely and you can learn from each other.
Are there any industries you absolutely love and would love to work with? Or are there any on the same coin, on the other side of the coin? Are there any industries you just like? Hey, if you're in this industry, we're not gonna mess with that at all.
We've got a lot of service-based companies, HVAC, electrical contracting, roofing, flooring. Personally, I like industries that have reoccurring revenue. So IT support companies, bookkeeping, digital marketing, anything that's got reoccurring revenue and is more the need than a want. I know digital marketing might fall under the want, but it's becoming ever necessary to run a business and be competitive now. So yeah, IT support companies, digital marketing, bookkeeping, they're the type of companies I'm looking to work with, as well as the service-based businesses that we've also got a large portfolio in.
When you get a large play area like that, you can actually learn from like there's similarities across all of those service-based industries, right? And you can learn from those. The playbook from one, certain elements of that playbook will transfer to the other, right? For a long time, I still kind of own it. I think we're winding it down now. It's a little tiny pest control company that I initially messed with, which is I call it my nepotism company because everybody that works there is related to me in some form or fashion, cousins and uncle. That said, that versus a roofing versus a heat and air, there's logistics and, like, scheduling when the service call is gonna happen, and there's software and tools for this. The same there's tools that do CRM, there's the tools that'll do the accounting for those and the recurring billing, and so I like that you're in that service industry because there's skills that you pick up from one that you can apply to the others. There's also cross-selling and upselling, right? One of the things we were looking at, before I moved to California 1,800 miles away from my pest control company was like, what if I acquired a cleaning company? Who finds more bugs than the cleaning lady,
Yeah,
right? Or, spray foam insulation. One of the ways to keep bugs out of a place is what's called exclusion. You just make it to where it's hard for them to come in, especially things like spiders and ants and stuff. So, we were looking at different industries. So, having that concentration of clients, I think gives you guys a leg up on a lot of people. And then on the marketing and account services and stuff, I'm a prior real estate investor. Everything I look at is like, how do I add a recurring revenue model to this? Right? How do I get subscription style?
yep.
How do I collect my rent? Like I'm a prior real estate investor. It's like how do I turn this into something where I get my rent check or my mortgage payment, right? From these clients. Not every industry can do that, but quite a few of them can. So I agree with you on that on those segments. Is there anything you just totally won't touch?
No, I think that's it, my friend. I've enjoyed it. As I say, I'm very active on LinkedIn, giving
Mhm.
advice. I do not sell you, don't sell any courses or anything like that.
Yeah.
I literally just give value on LinkedIn, give value on my WhatsApp group, give value on my YouTube. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. For those I can add value to and do like me, you're more
Mhm.
than welcome to come and follow me, and hopefully I can impact you in a positive way. And if I'm not your cup of tea, at least you know that now and you don't have to waste your time and find out any further.
Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. So let's wrap this up. We'll call that a show and hang out for a few minutes.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Ron.
I want to announce our new channel partners, the ITX Marketplace. Since 1998, ITX has created $5 billion in value by selling more than 225 IT businesses in 20 countries.
ITX works exclusively with IT-enabled businesses generating between 5 million and 30 million who are ready to be sold, and M&A decision makers who are ready to buy. For over 25 years, ITX has developed industry knowledge that helps determine whether a seller is a good fit for their buyers before making the match. ITX Mergers and Acquisition Marketplace we have partnered with has a proprietary database of 50,000 plus global buyers seeking IT service firms, managed service providers, Microsoft service providers, software as a service platforms, and channel partners with Microsoft, Oracle, ServiceNow, and the Salesforce space. If you have an IT-enabled business you're ready to sell, I want you to visit the itexchangenet.com/marketplace, how to exit. That link will be in the show notes. Visit them now.